Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for practice owners and leaders, where we are obsessed with how to build a successful practice and get a life too. Hi, I'm Chuck Blakeman, and we're going to dive into another topic that helps us make more money in less time, get off the treadmill, and rehumanize dentistry by giving everybody their brain back. Welcome back to the Get Off the Treadmill podcast for practice owners and leaders, where we are obsessed with how to build a successful practice and get a life too. Hi, I'm Chuck Blakeman, and I'd like to have us dive into another topic that will help us make more money in less time and rehumanize dentistry by giving everybody their brain back. Today, I've got Craig Spodak with me. He's a friend and a wonderful dentist in the Delray Beach, Florida area. He's a dental director and founder of Spodak Dental Group. He's founded AllStar Smiles and AllStar Smile Foundation, which I want to talk a little bit about today. And he's providing dental care to children nationwide through that. Also the co-host of the Bulletproof Dental podcast, and they've got a summit coming up here in the fall that you won't want to miss. Craig's a third-generation dentist. His goal is to deliver comprehensive dental care in a single 13,000 square foot internally managed practice. I've been there numerous times. It's incredible. He created one of the world's only LEED gold certified dental facilities, and Craig has also become one of the top 1% providers of Invisalign. Spodak Dental Group was recently named one of the Inc. magazine's 5,000 fastest growing businesses. It's awesome to have you on the show, Craig.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, man.
You bet. Well, today I want to talk about vision. Last time we talked about your book and we touched on this stuff a little bit, but I think this is so important. Dentistry is one of those heads down kind of businesses, literally, where you've got your hands in somebody's mouth and you're just chairside, and we're taught 200 plus hours of dentistry and maybe 2 hours of business, 3 hours of business, or anything connected to that. And how much of that is anything to do with vision about what I want out of this? It's just this giant assumption that if I get into business, if I get into dentistry and I do well, somehow I'll be happy. Somehow this will all work out. And we really don't design our future. So I'm a fan of yours because you did that early on. And I want to talk about the value of knowing clearly where we want to end up and when. So I beat this drum all the time. You hear me say it. You get what you intend, not what you hope for. And then I talk about Freedom Doc and Hostage Doc. They start in the same place with the same opportunities, but 30 years later, they end up in very different places. One who's a hostage to their practice and dreads Monday mornings, and the other who has created a practice that creates freedom for them, the ability to choose. You intended from the very early stages, you were working with your dad. Tell us the story. You intended something very different from early in your career. Where did that germinate? How did it unfold? And just love to hear a little bit of your story on how in the early years, when you were working with your dad, you decided you wanted this crazy thing.
Yeah, so it started out really early. I'm a third generation dentist, as you mentioned, and I never really could envision myself being a dentist because my dad's practice, like when I was growing up, was, I grew up in the 80s, but it was a little bit even predated even when in the 80s. It was a little bit more like Brady Bunch style. And it was a very drab environment, had the wood paneling on the walls and the split pea green carpet. And I could never understand. I figured that's dentistry. And then my dad did a remodel of his office, probably right around the time I left for college. And it just looked a lot brighter and newer. And it just spawned an idea in me that dentistry could really be whatever you want it to be. And I had this idea of something that was really cool, that I could see it, that it was going to be something just totally different. And that just spawned my creativity. And then, right around the time I was in college at American University in the early 90s, Starbucks came around. I saw Starbucks doing some cool stuff about the way they're shifting retail. And as you know, Chuck, I always feel that dentistry is more akin to retail than healthcare.
Yes.
You're competing for discretionary dollars. And I just started to blend this idea that you could do something that's a slick retail type thing for dentistry. And I got excited about it. It got my juices flowing. And in 2008, after I'd been working for my dad for quite some time and nothing was really changing, my mom worked the front desk and we had an appointment book, and my mom thought computers were devil magic and we weren't allowed to have a computer. I just kind of envisioned this different thing. And I remember putting pen to paper A woman that was working with me at the time named Michelle told me about this thing called descriptive vision. And the descriptive vision is a retrospective vision that you write as if it's already happened. So I picked the day in the future and I wrote it as if it already came to pass. Like, I'm so proud that I pull up to my office, and it was really descriptive, like colors, people, everything. And at the time I wrote it, I had like 5 employees and I had a drab little small office, but I wrote it as if it already had happened. And I had 35 employees, and that I described the building that didn't exist. And it was really powerful, and it was a really beautiful creative process. But what I think was most important about it, looking back anecdotally, or rather retrospectively, was that I described how it made me feel. Because I think most people get into the problem of saying, you know, I want a beach house and I want a Cadillac, and it's all going to be this, but they don't talk about what that's going to make them feel, because then they wind up getting that shit and then they don't feel any different.
Yeah.
So one thing that I noticed recently, you know, as I've done more work, is my descriptive vision I wrote in 2008 talks about how I feel. So it's like, I have this and it makes me feel great because of this. Yeah. So a lot of fulfillment was baked into that. And that's why I think it was like this kind of North Star for me, this guiding light that got me through the tough times. And actually I just recently redid one very recently for another 3 years.
Well, hold on to that one, because I want to ask you about that one later.
Sure.
Because I know you're a visionary, you're never done. But that's, you might have said that before, but I've not heard that before about the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
And that's really important. Too often, even if we do create a vision for ourselves, it's a vision like, I want my office to make X revenue with X profit in X location with X number of patients. And there's nothing about it that's gripping. It's just this factual view of the future. That's not going to connect with us. Yeah. We're not going to connect with it. It's when we actually see the benefit to us and that emotional satisfaction that comes to us as a result. That's when we get gripped by stuff.
Yeah. So even I have it up here, and just to pull it, I won't take up time, but I will read a sentence or two. It starts off with, even though I've driven up to the building so many times, it always inspires me when I see the place where I work. That's the first sentence. And then maybe 3 or 4 sentences down, it says, a smile comes to my face as I think about how the thousands of people who drive past our building every day must wonder what type of magic goes on inside of Delray Beach's first certified green building. So there's a lot of like emotions around it. It wasn't process. And I think that's what brought me to a lot of years of fulfillment and guidance. And like everything else, that sat up on a shelf for a while, maybe longer than it should. And they didn't do version 2, 3, and 4. And you say you get what you intend and not what you hope for.
Yeah.
A descriptive vision written in 2008 can take you pretty far, but it can't take you to 2018. You know what I mean? So there's always the what's next. And when you focus on goals, when you get to them, it's like, that's cool. What's next? And I think it's important to keep that alive. So.
Well, I think you've illustrated incredibly well the simple difference between hostage doc and freedom doc. Hostage doc does not design his or her future. They just jump in and anticipate that if they build a practice, something good will happen. Well, that's hope. And you don't get what you hope for. You have to be intentional. It's a very intentional thing to write that vision and to say, here's what it's supposed to look like for me, and here's how it's going to look for me. There's not enough of that, and I've had to ask myself, why is it that so many people have such short visions? Simon Sinek has talked about this a lot of times. It might not be hard for someone to write a vision, but sticking to it is really tough. And the whole idea is that I think we're short-term decision makers. Simon Sinek says there's an epidemic of short-term decision making. I think it's been there all along. I think that's just human nature, is to think about, how do I kill a mastodon and eat it now? You know, it's not about what does my house look like later. So I think it's built into the way we live. And as a result, we wake up 10 or 15 or 20 years later in our practice and wonder, how in the world did I get here? I'm the same place I was 20 years ago. So it's
John Lennon. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans.
That's right. So there's tons of, it's a great way to put it. There are tons of distractions along the way that could wear us down. Right. I'd love to hear about some of the major lessons you've learned along the way about keeping focused, building your practice around your vision, how you might have gotten sidetracked, and just shorten that journey for the rest of us.
Wow. I guess in hindsight, I'm learning as you're speaking, or I'm really thinking about it critically now that we're talking about it. In many ways, the astronauts that landed on the moon, the original crew, we know what happened to them, alcoholics and all that stuff. Because like you land on the freaking moon, you're 28 years old. Where do you go from there?
Yeah.
So I think I had a little bit of the lunar landing syndrome happen to me. I got here, and just the fact that I made it was such a crazy thing like that, that I made it, because it was really a pretty large risk. That I landed on the other side, that I grabbed the cliff with my fingernails and pulled myself up. That I turned my focus off of like, okay, what's next for a little while. So that unintentionality, I think, gave me some looseness about where I've gone since moving here. But I think the most important thing is focusing on fulfillment versus achievement. Because we've all bought into this universal idea that achievement and fulfillment are related to each other, and they're intimately related. If I get this, then I'll feel that. And that sets us off for a lot of disappointment. Hollywood is filled with examples of that. People that are starving to just get to their first acting gig, and they get it, and then they wind up extremely depressed on drugs or offing themselves. Yeah. So achievement and fulfillment are not always related. So maybe focusing on fulfillment first, because I get a lot of dentists say, I want what you have. And I say, why? And that's just floors them, or the normal answer is, well, I want to have 10 offices. Well, why? Because then I'm going to sell them and drink champagne. Well, then for how long? I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I literally had a dentist say that to me. Like, I'll go on. What do you mean, why? I'll have $20 million. I'll get in a boat and drink champagne. How long are you going to do that for?
There's an old Carpenters song. I don't even know what the name of it is, but it just popped into my head. A line from this crazy song from the 70s. It says, pretty much, the joy is not in the acquisition, but in the pursuit.
Yeah. So I guess that's the point. Keep pursuing.
Yeah.
So, as long as you have goals that are more related to feelings and not stuff and goalposts, I think that's a definition of long-term happiness, and progress equals happiness. As long as we're progressing and growing, we're doing well. And, it's all about what you want. My advice, I know I'm getting all tangential here, but I speak from my own experience. And one of my doctors recently left, Dr. Evan, who I think he moved out to Austin, and total, millennial. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the good way as well. Really living to work versus working to live. And here I am gunning, for more, advancing the practice. And he's like, man, I'm just going to unplug. I'm going to move to Austin. Love working with you. Love you. It's been great. But I'm going to go to Austin. I don't have a job. I don't even have my license yet, but I'm going to write poetry and take my dog to the river. And I don't know who has it right. So right. It's not one size fits all. My suggestion is, as dentists, we're all clamoring to find out what each other's doing and to try to put on that vision for ourselves. Take a moment, get intentional about what you want to create. And this fear of the FOMO, as it's called, fear of missing out, or what should I do, or what's the best dental business model, that's all bullshit. It's what makes you happy. And as long as you're happy and fulfilled, even if you're happy and fulfilled working 2 days a week as an associate, that's great. Just know thyself, know what you want. Because life's too short to live someone else's dream. And just like hearing Bold in her eye or some other dentist that's doing something different, saying, oh, that's what I should be doing. That's a travesty. Don't put on someone else's vision. Get intentional and do it yourself.
Yeah. And it leads me to think about the three modes. I believe there's three modes that human beings operate in. One is, I'm running away from something. I'm running away from being an alcoholic. I'm running away from poverty. I'm running away from, I've got all these bills to pay. I got all these staff I need to support. And so I'm in practice basically running away every month from all this fear and all these things that have to get done. And that is not sustainable. Running away from something is never sustainable. It will always suck you back in. When you say, I will never be an alcoholic like Uncle John, and you've focused on not being an alcoholic, that's the best way to become an alcoholic, because you're running away from it.
Yeah.
And then the second mode is to run towards something. That's where vision comes in. When we're running towards something, that is always sustainable. The third one is the one that scares me the most. And I see this a lot in dentistry, and that is being in neutral.
Yeah.
I'm not running away and I'm not running toward. I'm just showing up every day and
Yeah.
going through the motions. And
Neutral
that
happens
one's,
by default, by the way, Chuck. Neutral will happen.
yeah,
Neutral is what will
absolutely.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because, if you're, yeah, there's no way to, it's the second law of thermodynamics. If you're not really pushing hard forward,
Yeah.
then you will end up in neutral.
Yeah.
Because running away is tiring and running towards something, you're not doing it. So I see that a lot. I think that's the importance of vision. You get what you intend. What are you intending to run after? So when you ask people, why do you want what I want? And they're floored by that, that shows a neutral mode that scares the bejeebies out of me, because
Well,
I
we've
never
all
want to
been,
be there.
yeah, but we've all subscribed to this American slash Western philosophy. More. It's going to be great. Like you say, make a little bit of money, get a house, the mortgage, make more money, trade that house in for the next house, make more money, house in an RV, house RV boat, house RV helicopter. It just doesn't matter. It never stops. It's a hedonic treadmill that we're all victims of. And dentists, we make more money generally each year. So as long as we're making, 8 to 10% more per year, we can spend 15 to 20% more and everything's going to work out, right? but it does take some intentionality, and the default is to go to neutral and to believe that more and more is going to be better. And life, it's just learning. It's all learning.
Well, I think it goes back to your achievement versus fulfillment thing as well. Too often we're achieving, and once we've achieved, like we said, the pursuit, the joy is not in the acquisition. Okay, I have a 3,000 square foot house. Now what? Well, I guess I'll go get a 5,000 square foot house. Holy crap, I need to make more money. And then you do that. Well, I got a 5,000. Well, let me buy a boat. Holy crap, I need to make more money. And it's this unending filling of this void in our lives, because we really don't have anything that's fulfilling. All we can do is replace it with another achievement. I have a friend like that who I've had to tiptoe around this at times, but he's one of the most achievement-oriented people I've ever met. I don't know that he's got much fulfillment.
Yeah. I had, and the other thing is we'll tend to screw ourselves up. And when we get deep into our own psychology of, thinking that you don't want what you have. And there's so many layers to it. Being human is being freaking crazy. You got emotions about your emotions. I got emotions about your emotions about my emotions. It's just total insanity. And we're all living this human experience, which is somewhat insane depending on the day and how reactive you are. But one of the things is that, it's, does somebody else have it better? And I was in California last week, like looking at these guys that are doing different things, and like, wow, I could pull the plug and move to California. That'd be kind of cool. Like, and then I thought about then I'm like, this would be great. It would be great to be in California. It'd be great to just unplug myself from Florida and be in California. And then I really thought about it. Like, do I want that? Do I want to trade my life? And I put myself down in that mental space of going down there. I'm like, I don't even want that. Yeah. So it's funny. I mean, the greatest battle, the greatest learning is learning yourself. And what do they say? The spiritual journey is the 18 inches from your head to your heart. Getting out of your head and into your heart. This is the longest journey we'll ever have, is those 18 inches. And as long as you're in a space where you're trying to get better and you're trying to work on what really matters, I think you have some intentionality around it, you're going to tend to be happier than those of us who are on autopilot, just putzing along, just saying I should do what Bolden or Dr. Jones is doing or what my neighbor's doing.
Well, so part of this fulfillment side of this, tell us about your nonprofit part of your vision and the things that have happened there with AllStar Smiles. You created that with, was it the Yankees guy, Giancarlo Stanton? Was that who it was with?
Yeah, Giancarlo Stanton. So he was a Marlin at the time. We've always had a charitable focus. I can credit Dr. Dudley in our practice for that. Maybe 8 years ago, or 7 years ago, she had us do a Habitat for Humanity build. And a bunch of us are on a roof smacking nails in. And the woman who we're building the house for had a ripping toothache. And I'm like, this is a gross misappropriation of our talents. Never mind, it's dangerous for dentists to be smacking nails on a roof. So we started out with a free dental day, 7, 8 years ago, and started doing philanthropy. I'm involved with Freedom Day USA, a charity give back to veterans and their families. And then Giancarlo in 2014 got hit with a pitch, a 95-mile-an-hour fastball right to his teeth. And I fixed his teeth. He got sent here by his agent. And long story short, while he was waiting for his teeth to be milled, I showed him like who we are and what we're doing. And then he got that iconic $325 million sports contract, the largest contract in the history of sports. And he calls me up and says, hey, I want to do a charity with you. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome.
So I felt that wasn't really, I had been thinking about a non-for-profit. I had written that in vision statements before. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. So now we have a 501c3. Our mission is to help eradicate children's decay. And we're working hard on that. And John Carlo, if you go to his Instagram page, his bio contains the AllStarSmiles.org page. If you're a dentist looking to get involved in that, we need your help. So AllStarSmiles.org. And it's just been really fulfilling. And what I've learned about pursuit of those fulfillment or aspirations for, I guess, righteousness, like if you look at it that way, is you've got to be aligned. We all want to stand out in front. I think that's a good instinct, that we want to be recognized for our efforts. But I also believe that you have to have the right reasons for doing it. Like, I know it feels good to see our name acknowledged. We all have that in us. Even the first cry of a baby is a cry for significance. Hey, I'm here, I'm alive. So I think we all have that innate aspect to be significant, but also keeping in mind that it's in service to other people, and not to be self-righteous, but to do it even when no one's looking. And I struggle with that sometimes too. My goal is, I have some amazing friends that are doing amazing things and no one even knows that they're doing them. And that's pretty badass. When you're at the point where you're doing badass stuff to help humanity and you don't have to tell anybody, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, University of Virginia has this secret society of the Seven or something like that. And it's basically that kind of stuff. You don't even know who's part of the Seven, and they're the part of the Seven their whole life, or whatever that thing's called. It's the same thing. And they get voted in basically because they're people who are doing things that nobody's noticing.
And funny enough, by the way, that's how I got linked to the charity for John Carlo. So after I fixed John Carlo's teeth, like his dental injury was making all the papers. Like, John Carlo has massive dental injury. And I was like, I want to put the picture out, promote that I did it. I didn't do it because I want to respect his privacy. And I didn't want to say hey man, is it okay if I post my picture of you? Right. But they were watching me, unbeknownst to me, they were watching me. And when they called me 6 months after I fixed him and he got the contract, they said, the reason why he feels comfortable with you is because you didn't violate. We've been watching you. Yeah. They said to me, his agent said to me, you got to think of John Carlo. It's a $325 million contract, but he's like a $325 million business, a corporation. Yes. And we watch for these things. And the fact that you didn't exploit him or violate the trust is the reason why we were so willing to do it with you. So it's kind of came full circle, that don't promote.
Awesome. But that's awesome. Well, in this vision thing, I just want to make sure that the docs who are listening understand that we're not saying you have to become the business guy. We're also not saying you have to be stuck in the chair. What we're saying is, what is it that would get you excited? And it could be a combination of both. Do you want to be in the chair? Do you want to be out of the chair? Do you want to be, you do a little bit of both. And I just want people to understand, this is about figuring out what is the highest and best use of your time. What really would get you to run to the practice on Monday mornings? Get that stuff figured out, and then figure out how to offload the rest of it to somebody else. That's part of a great vision. All right.
And if you're fueled by it, you can turn an energy consuming behavior into an energy creating behavior. I was around, the guy that founded the Starkey Foundation a couple of weeks ago. It was at the Starkey Gala up in Minneapolis. And the guy, God, I'm forgetting his name now, Bill, it'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, the guy that founded it, he's in his 70s, and he goes to Uganda and all these different places, remote places, and gives people the gift of hearing, fits them with a hearing aid. You turn on the hearing aid for the first time. These are, 5-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 50, 60, 80-year-olds are hearing for the first time, and immediately it's a universal reaction of wonderment and tears, and it's so beautiful. And this guy will not stop. He will not take a break for lunch. He will not take a break for breakfast. I mean, he will just go. And that's a guy that's in his flow state. He's doing what's principled and what makes him happy, and it's not work. So, I remember meeting a guy at one of your summits, and he had one practice that made money, and it felt okay for him, but it was really like work. And then another practice where he was in a remote rural area and oftentimes doing dentistry on farmers, and they were just giving him what he wanted or what they could give him, like chickens and eggs and crap like that. Yeah. And his drive to the rural place gave him all the energy. And I'm like, lose the damn lose the profitable. I mean, like do what makes you happy. And oftentimes what makes you happiest will give you the most amount of
And he'll figure out how to make money doing that if he's
Yeah.
doing what he's doing is happy. So.
Yeah. When your passion is your profession, it somehow seems to work out. People detect that.
Yep.
Well,
we're out of time, but you're a visionary, and visionaries are never done. So I'd love to hear what's the next big thing you're tackling real quickly.
What's the next big thing I'm tackling? It was really, one thing I do, a couple takeaways, I handwrite it because there's an act of handwriting versus typing. There's something that happens in your brain, your reticular activating system.
Somatic learning.
Basically it's a big pat on the back. My future self in 3 years is giving himself a big pat on the back. That I realize that all the challenges that I've gone through have been for my growth. And although things didn't make sense at this particular point, they all worked out. So it's a little spiritual in that God kind of gave me what I needed to get what I needed to get. And then there's a lot of metrics in there about profit and shifting the business and things about my relationships with my wife and my children and how they feel. My health. It talks about what type of physical condition I'm in very physically, my weight, my body fat, my flexibility. It really just goes into deep portions of every part of my life. Awesome. And only really the first page is about the practice itself. But there is some intentional stuff about the practice, shrinking the practice, funny enough. Shrinking the amount of business volume that we do, shrinking the amount of employees we have. I've been sucked into this idea of everybody loves talking about their gross. You ask their dentist what their gross is. Everybody knows their gross. Oh, we do $1 million a year. What do you take home? No one knows that one.
Right.
So everybody's, when you get up, and I was talking to a friend of mine that didn't want to be part of YPO. He got invited to YPO because these people are all talking about their $40 million businesses, but they can't afford to buy their house.
Right.
So it's just this intentionality more on profitability and maybe fewer interactions, lesser amounts of people, and going deeper into diagnosis and less patient visits and stuff like that. It's just, at the end of the day, we're always just experimenting. No one has a crystal ball.
But I think the important thing there is you get what you intend, not what you hope for. Craig, it's been a joy to have you on today. Real quickly, tell people how they can connect with your summit coming up and with all of that stuff.
Yeah, so the summit, thanks for mentioning that, Chuck. We got a summit October 12th through 15th in Atlanta at the St. Regis, the beautiful St. Regis over there. It's really cool. It's Pete Bolden and I, the guy that I wrote the book, the Bulletproof Dental Practice book, and the podcast with. We have 70 attendees. That's for doctors and their highly motivated team members that treat the business like their own. And we're just about sold out. So I think there's about 15 more spots. And if you want to get on that, it's the bulletproofdentalpractice.com.
By the time this airs, it won't be 15. So you better hurry.
Yeah.
What's that URL again?
Bulletproofdentalpractice.com. Or you can just Google bulletproofdentalpractice.com. And register for that. We're leaving it all on the table. This is not something that you go to and then sign up for other stuff. It's just everything we've learned in the combined 36 years of getting our butts kicked in practice and all the highs and lows and giving it all back on the table. So look forward to it. Very cool.
Well, I know people will get a lot out of it. Docs will have their practices transformed. So we're excited about promoting that for you. Craig, it's been a joy to have you on today, my friend. Let's keep going.
Yeah, always, Chuck. I appreciate you and all the things you brought to my life and my practice and for dentistry as a whole. So thank you, Chuck. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much. If this podcast was helpful, please subscribe by computer or by phone, or connect with us at www.gottsummit.com, 2 T's, G-O-T-T summit.com. That stands for Get Off the Treadmill. We have those summits quarterly for dental practitioners only. Or connect with us at www.chuckblakeman.com or email us at grow@cranksetgroup.com. Let's get off that treadmill. Let's get into the participation age. I look forward to seeing you in the next podcast. Thanks.